Review of Baja from The Rookie Season 8 Episode 7, It's Powerful Without a Bullet. The main character of The Rookie is no longer John Nolan, rather Nathan Fillion is the show's star. He is overshadowed in Baja by Miles Penn, who is the sole newcomer in the major cast. However, the site of an undercover operation headed by Chen and Nyla Harper that pursues a drug cartel while pursuing justice for women who might otherwise go unnoticed is referenced in the episode title. Another episode devoid of violence, it serves as a reminder to fans of what makes The Rookie unique among police procedural shows. Although the weekly trailer hinted at something different, the blurb for The Rookie Season 8, Episode 7 emphasized the necessity of the undercover operation. Chen is eager to embark on this case because she has always enjoyed this type of police work. Experienced undercover agent Nyla Harper finds it difficult to part from her kid. Nolan and Penn are part of the citywide manhunt for a suspect, which was also disclosed in the preview. In contrast to a few days or a single shift, the action takes place over a minimum of a month, which is unusual for an episode of The Rookie. Sadly, the narrative and tempo prevent viewers from sensing that time passing. It's a minor slip-up for another brilliant episode in what is turning out to be The Rookie's most assured and reliable season in a long time. The Rookie re-examines Chen and Harper's nuanced decisions to work undercover. Because they were both single parents with difficult careers, Nolan and Harper grew close while Harper was still the title rookie. After a lengthy period of undercover work upended her life, she was appointed his training officer. When she bids her husband James and youngest child farewell, this memory looms over her. However, the episode doesn't go far enough in exploring if Harper is using this case as a means of evading an internal affairs probe that follows her about, whether it's at home or in the precinct. Even though Chen's undercover work is featured in many of her best episodes, it appears that she is no longer pursuing it. She is now a sergeant and lives with Tim Bradford. Her compassion for two young women who were killed while living the van life and using drugs is what motivates her to pursue this case. This is more persuasively sold in the show than Harper's predicament. It's clear over 8 seasons that thrill-seeking is a contributing factor in Lucy's love for her work. In Baja, she sacrifices the action for a month of doing very little because she wants justice for victims that the system doesn't care about. Even procedurals that test the boundaries of believing can't match The Rookie's beat cop emphasis, which allows for greater storytelling variation. Since Chen and Harper spend much of their time on routine police work, it seems improbable that they would be assigned this case. That isn't all that different from other police dramas, but The Rookie also shines because of the way its episodes make viewers feel sorry for characters like drug runners who have been killed. Lucy supports them in a pivotal scene when Harper, enthralled with the excitement of undercover work, proposes carrying out the operation in order to achieve a bigger arrest. A major error will keep the title of the show making sense for a little while. Penn, a trainee officer nearing the end of his tenure, is still being trained by Nolan back in Los Angeles. Their task, which is to spy on a residence connected to a wanted criminal, should ensure that Penn graduates without any problems. Ultimately, he had previously served as a Texas police officer. The episodes in which he commits grave errors and is fired by Bradford, the new commander, are justified by that fact about his past. TV programs adore for these hero cowboy antics, but The Rookie used them to punish the character. John Nolan stayed out of trouble early in the series, avoiding a career blunder. However, Nolan chose to become a training officer rather than a detective. Yes, since his pupil was the Rookie instead of him, the title of the episode may still make sense in this way. However, it's also ideal for the character, and Baja is a fantastic illustration of this. When Penn makes a mistake, Nolan is upset with him and more critical of him than he was of Selena Juarez, his first rookie. With the same penalty he received, namely a 6-month extension of his rookie status, he also saves Penn's job. Once more, this eliminates the need for a new cast member and lets the show be about a novice. However, it also advances the plot and Penn's character. The program brought back dismissed rookie Seth Ridley in Season 8, Episode 3, The Red Place, where Penn helped him grow as a person. By portraying Ridley as the sensible one, Baja masterfully makes up for this, and it further redeems the character when he risks his life to rescue Penn's. Penn is humbled and has a point to prove, just like Nolan before him, which will make for fantastic TV. The Rookie tells better, bigger stories by including even more serialization elements. Serialization has always been a part of the series, but in Season 8, more long-running arcs than ever before infiltrate the individual episodes. Perhaps Baja skips over Nolan and his wife Bailey Noon's new normal, since she accepted a job offer in Washington, D.C. In The Network, the 5th episode of Season 8, this decision nearly caused them to part ways. But it was a hectic episode. Their adaptation to a long-distance marriage isn't necessarily a bad thing if it only creates more conflict in the future. The trial of serial killer Liam Glasser, which was set up in the previous episode, Burn for Love, is also a broader storyline. It includes Harper's battles with internal affairs, Wesley Evers's district attorney campaign, and the final return of the murderer. What's most noteworthy about the way IA is employed in Baja is that Harper isn't some persecuted hero cop like in other cop shows, including the first season of The Rookie. Rather of viewing the components of the legal system that safeguard the accused's civil rights as an issue, Harper acknowledges her error to Chen. Characters in The Rookie are treated like heroes, but the show never forgets that upholding high standards is a necessary component of what makes them heroic. The scenes in which a character silently muses, "That could have been me," are among the most captivating in police dramas. On The Rookie Season 8 Episode 7, Lucy's personal connection to the victims served as her driving force for pursuing this case. She was determined to discover the person who killed the 2 young women who lived in a van. Miles also faced some severe repercussions for his careless behavior during the hour, however there were some annoyances associated with that arc. It was simple to comprehend Lucy's strong feelings regarding this case when they began with that graphic incident. It was terrible enough that one of the victims had perished in the van, but it was far worse to have to witness the other victim's death while she was attempting to save her companion. The highlight of this hour was Lucy's intense interest in this situation. She gave us a wealth of information about her past and her pre-police years, and being aware of it completes her as a person. Having a show like this for so long has several benefits, one of which is that there are always minor surprises and new character facets to discover. Numerous people exist. Even after years of getting to know someone, you may never truly understand them. Additionally, under various conditions, you might have dynamics with people and still discover completely new facets of them. The way Lucy and Nyla pretended to be a happy couple living in a van was a great narrative point since it gave them the opportunity to confide in one another and converse in ways that aren't typically seen. Nyla usually looks to Angela for items. There will occasionally be some wonderful moments with her and Nolan as well. Lucy is a fascinating character because, although she is content and has a newfound friendship with Selena, she hasn't had that close-knit buddy to talk to in a long. Recently, Tamara was the closest example. One-on-one interactions between Lucy and Nyla are usually memorable. Lucy learned from Nyla how to use her skills and make up for her shortcomings in order to be a female cop, not just a cop. They felt unbalanced at times, but this was a wonderful situation that allowed them to utilize their relationship as friends, partners, and equals, and it was really endearing. Nyla's inability to confide in Angela about the Glasser scenario as she usually would do to the Wesley factor makes sense. Her viewpoint as a police officer is also not often understood by James. However, Lucy feels vulnerable, and it felt very natural for her to share some of her worries and fears over this IA probe. However, Lucy was the one who shared the most. She didn't know what she wanted to do with her life at this time, but she wanted to get away from her parents' expectations and the prospect of becoming a doctor. She may have encountered some difficult circumstances during that time, and she perhaps engaged in certain non-kosher activities. The only thing that really set her apart from those victims was that she was just fortunate enough to avoid falling into the hands of someone who could kill her. Because Lucy's support for this issue was so intensely personal, it stood out. In addition to her sense of legal obligation, she pursued justice out of a sincere desire to assist people with whom she had a close relationship. Lucy concentrated on bringing justice to these 2 ladies rather than aiming for more significant wins or intricate cases, which reaffirmed the episode's main idea. To be honest, I was concerned that she may decide to close the case and leave everyone there. I worry if that will contribute to a later story point or endanger a much bigger case later on. Let's see if obtaining justice now won't cause problems later. The killer's eventual admission of guilt and Lucy's uncontrollable emotions when the investigation was closed were among the hour's highlights. It was such a tender, lovely, emotional moment when Nyla stood next to her while they gazed out at the water, reassuring her that it's acceptable to feel her emotions. Given that Lucy excels at undercover work and that Nyla is the greatest of the best, it felt like a sincere reminder of how much of a mentor Nyla was in that area. Although Lucy struggled to think back on her history and the Glasser case continues to hang over Nyla and worry me, it was encouraging to see how well they bonded. The whole event with Miles, though, was less pleasant. For the purpose of the plot, this storyline felt like a character regression, which is why I find it frustrating. We've had Miles for a while, and he's largely overcome his sense of dislocation and sporadic behavior due to his former way of doing things in Texas. Miles is obviously sincere, but the entire situation, staking out during his free time, pursuing someone into a car wash rather than simply meeting them there, and almost having himself and Seth killed, was incredibly foolish and careless. Miles is not a moron either. I'm merely attempting to understand the point at which he isn't getting any sleep and is engaging in illegal stakeouts during his free time in an effort to prove himself or something. What else needs to be proven by him? We have witnessed him earn his keep and experience his developing maturity. This plot seems to have been planned for when he first came rather than now. The only thing it does is prolong his rookie status. The fact that Tim fired him in the heat of the moment was startling as well. St. Nolan argued for him, so he did take it back later, but Tim's choice seemed hasty, and they walked it back less than 2 minutes later. It also appeared to be an intentional attempt to win back fans' affection for Seth. I'm not really sure why or what the point is of them slowly making their way back into the series. Was it truly necessary for Seth to return? No. It seems like they are attempting to erase that from our memories and restart the character because they wasted the actor's skills on a very bad plotline about him lying about everything. I don't think Seth should return, and I most definitely don't like the concept of changing Miles' character and experience on the program for the sole purpose. Nevertheless, I will admit that this Seth is at least more bearable, and I won't mind if he makes a more permanent appearance in the series. He was the one that told Miles that his behavior wasn't the best, but he also stood by him no matter what. This Seth is demonstrating that he is a reasonable and logical person who can also be a fantastic friend and companion. I couldn't help but notice the irony that Miles believed he would have the power to push Seth back into the conflict, but Seth ended up having the cop instincts and complete control of the shared brain cell during this hour. Once more, call me uninterested if Seth returns or not. However, I draw the line when it starts to adversely impact Miles' development, growth, evolution, and screen time. Perhaps the greater problem here is that, while Miles was a good rookie under Bradford, he sporadically performs poorly under Nolan. Episode 7 secondary plot centers on Miles Penn, Derek Augustine. Miles is still a rookie, so it seems natural that he still has a lot to learn, but it's growing difficult to watch him continuously making mistakes. A surveillance mission is given to Miles and John Nolan, played by Nathan Fillion, to track down a dangerous criminal known as Hamster. Nolan advises Miles to stay focused on his work while his buddy is with him and to never go policing off-duty during their stakeout. Hamster is on the run before they can successfully capture him. Once again, Hamster is in the wind after Miles makes a mistake during the chase. Miles decides to go on another off-duty stakeout, exactly what Nolan warned him not to do, in an attempt to prove that he is a decent cop after Nolan expresses disappointment in him. Miles makes the even worse choice of bringing Seth Ridley, Patrick Kelleher, along to keep an eye on Hamster. Now that Seth is a civilian, the stakes are only going to get higher.